Welcome to this product-focused webinar. It's part of a series of webinars aimed at providing insights, best practice, tools and ideas you can use to help improve product management and product marketing in your business. My name is Ian Lunn. I'm one of the founding directors of Product Focus. I've got over 25 years experience in product management and I've worked in companies of all shapes and sizes. And I'm joined by my fellow director, Andrew Dickinson.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I've been working in product management and product marketing almost as long as Ian, perhaps even longer. So who are we? Well, we're Europe's leading product management and product marketing training business with a focus on technology-based products. We've worked with a range of companies from startups to mid-sized and multinationals from around the world.
Welcome to our latest webinar, Product Management Recruitment, Best Practice Tips and Tricks. So now let me pass over to Chris, who will start the main body of the webinar.
Lovely, thank you, Ian. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Chris Mason. I'm one of the directors from Intelligent People, a product management recruitment specialist. I've been working in product management recruitment for more than 20 years now, and as an organization we've learned a lot through that time. We specialize in, well, we grew up as a contingency recruitment company. We've also got a thriving contract interim business, and we have an executive search practice as well that operates globally. Our customers are a mixture of B2C consumer brands and B2C consumer and B2B tech. And we work across all industry sectors, so we're very much product specialists working across all industry verticals, and our customers are a mixture of large global enterprise brands, but also scale up. So we tend to get involved leading up to or just after some kind of a funding event where an organization needs to build out an expert team to help them build and scale. And we're very collaborative. We work very closely with our customers. We have a dialogue throughout all of the recruitment projects that we deliver for them. So today we're going to talk about some of the challenges around product management recruitment and advice around best practice tips and tricks. It can be really challenging for a number of reasons, and what I'm going to share is some of the things that we do to try and optimize and get the best outcomes from the recruitment work that we do, and also share some of the best practice that we've noticed amongst our client community to try and give advice. So we've divided this into three areas. First, I'm going to talk about what you should do or what you should consider before hiring. The second part will be during the hiring process, and then at the final stage when you're trying to bring it to a close and onboard the person that you've hopefully engaged. Before you commence hiring, so the first thing we should recognize is that at the moment it's a very candidate-driven marketplace within product management. So if you think about some of the macroeconomic stuff that's going on, we've got inflation, we've got a cost of living crisis, and we have product management really growing in profile. It's been growing for the last 20 years, and you have many organizations today that really describe themselves as product-focused organizations, where product management thinking is front and center of everything they do, thinking about what outcomes they're looking for, why they're doing things, what problem they're solving, what value they're creating for their customer. So that creates a huge number of challenges when trying to engage the best people within a pool that isn't large enough to serve the market. So one of the first things I'd suggest you start thinking about is trying to avoid the need to hire in the first place. So employee retention. Most organizations have a 12-month salary review cycle. We've seen some of our clients reducing that to 3 months, or even 6 months, or even 3 months, where they're trying to benchmark constantly against the market, because we are seeing price inflation, salary inflation, particularly mid-range, but at the executive level as well. And the challenge you'll have is if you try and kick this down the road and tell your existing product teams that reviews happen at the year end or at the end of the financial year, they will be contacted constantly by your competition and other organizations who target them, potentially offering them higher salaries. So that's definitely something to think about. Try and retain the great talent that you've got by making sure that you're benchmarking correctly and you're rewarding people fairly. Before you start as well, you've got to start thinking about your the value proposition. So why should a product person, professional, or leader join you as an organization? Many large organizations have really have everything in place around this, but many scale-ups, it's often not something that they've really got to. So your value proposition includes not just your strategy and the role and the scope of the role. It's also what are your values as a business? So trying to figure out what sort of an organization and culture you are, and what that means for employees and the environment that you're hiring people into is really important, and it really should be genuine. And when you go through the process of trying to determine what your values are, it's strongly recommended that you engage your existing staff, because if no one thinks that it's genuine, then you'll only create problems for yourself with your existing employees and with new people when you onboard them. Another thing I'd mention is trying to be really conscious of bias, and trying to create a really diverse and inclusive environment. And there's a movement now which is hiring for non-fit, which I'd urge you to think about. So many times in the past, we've had candidates that have been rejected on the basis of culture fit, and it's sometimes difficult to understand what organizations mean by that. But I think in the past, it's often boiled down to they don't really seem like us. They don't look like us. They don't think the same way of us. They don't socialize in the same way that we might do. And that's really problematic. And there's lots of emerging data now to suggest that if you hire for non-fit, so people that think differently and have different ideas, that can drive commercial outcomes. It can also drive conflict, because by its very nature, you have people who have conflicting ideas. So there is a management challenge managing those environments and helping to coach people to listen to others as well as have their own opinions. But what that does from a hiring perspective is if you look at a candidate pool in a truly open-minded way, it just increases your candidate pool. So that's definitely something to think about. So defining the candidate profile that you need is really important. And again, I would try and boil that down to the raw competencies you need that are important for somebody to deliver what you need them to deliver. It's important to recognize that when you hire people, it's a two-way thing. So some organizations are just focusing on what they want as opposed to what the candidate gets. So it's important to think about what the sell is for the candidate. Why should they be excited? Why should they be interested in you as an organization? And one of the ways that we try and take opportunities to market and engage product people, particularly passive candidates, is to focus on the product roadmap. Product managers, we feel, they want to be impactful, they want to feel successful. So a good way of framing an opportunity is to say, look, if you join this organization in 2 to 3 years' time, this is what you're going to be talking about in terms of what you've built, what you've delivered, and the impact that's made. So talking about the roadmap in that way can be a really useful way of framing an opportunity and raising the interest of a product person. In terms of specific domain experience, I'd kind of challenge yourself on whether that's really essential, because often product management skills are transferable from one domain to another. There's lots of debate around can B2C product people move into B2B and vice versa, and sometimes that can be a bit more challenging. But from one sector to another within those areas, it's often very transferable, with some exceptions. So, for example, you get regulated markets where some of that regulated experience or knowledge can really reduce the learning curve, or sometimes there might be really real technical experience that you need, like payment gateways, and you could say that there's an argument for trying to find that just to lessen the learning curve. But I think trying to challenge yourself on whether you need domain experience is a really good thing to do. And then deciding on the selection process, so I'm going to talk about that a bit more later on, but it's important that you have a plan and you've thought about that up front, so that you're not finishing one stage and kind of saying, well, what happens next? So that's really important. Researching salary and kind of what benefits package are you offering? Is it competitive? Thinking about bonuses, thinking about equity is really important. Benchmarking and getting the data to benchmark is really useful. So that's something that we help our clients with all the time. You could talk to peers within the industry to try and get some data to try and see what's going on and whether you're benchmarking a role effectively. One of the things we're asked about all the time, particularly for product leaders with search work we do, is how much equity should we give? It's a really difficult question to answer because there are so many variables. We actually wrote a blog about this, which is on our website, which gives a bit more detail, but there is no straight answer, and we tend to look at every instance independently. It depends. A lot of it depends on the risk. So if you're pre-product market fit or pre-revenue, or you're not cash positive, will there be future kind of funding events and dilutions and so on? What's the exit time frame and what might that look like? So there are so many variables to think about, but there's no question that particularly with scale-ups, but also with large organizations, equity is a massive motivator and can give you an edge, particularly with super high performing candidates. So some things to consider before the process are confidentiality. So, are you replacing someone? Is there an incumbent? Is there some kind of a corporate action that's about to occur and you can't make public that you're hiring? That will affect the best route to market. Think about, you should challenge yourself and try and think about the size of the candidate pool. So what are we looking for and is it realistic? So if you're saying we must have somebody from a competitor, somebody who's worked in the same domain, how many competitors are there near you, within a geographical distance from wherever you need the candidate to be? How many of those are likely to be good enough or at the right level, and how many of those could you possibly engage? So trying to go through that process of thinking how big's the candidate pool, so that you can really get your head around how realistic your search may be is important. Always ask about internal candidates. I mean, it's the easiest way to hire, and it's great for obviously internal progression and retention of staff, and it gives your internal people a pathway. You can reward high performers, so that's something you should always consider. Are you being realistic around the size of the candidate pool and what you're offering and the experience you're looking for? That's a bit of a benchmarking thing, which again, recruitment partners can help with. When do you need somebody? How critical is it? If you need someone super quickly because you have somebody leaving, or you're in a really tight spot, it might be worth considering an interim as a stopgap. How much time do stakeholders have? So this is a conversation we often have with our clients, where people just aren't available. People that have to be involved in the recruitment process aren't available. And what we always say is, look, if recruitment isn't a priority, it's best to park it and then come back to it when it is a priority, because otherwise, the highest performing candidates that tend to move most quickly, they'll go off the market, and you're most likely to not get a good outcome, which means it's a total waste of time for everybody. So I wouldn't go into a recruitment exercise unless it was a real priority and all of the stakeholders were aligned and on board and understood that it was a priority as well. And finally, do you understand this domain? So obviously intelligent people are product experts. Many organizations have really great internal talent teams, but sometimes those teams are stretched really thin. Sometimes their expertise perhaps is in other areas like technology or finance. So it's a question you should ask around who's best to approach and engage and talk the market's language to engage candidates. And there are different routes to market. So hiring directly obviously is the most cost effective if you're able to do that and dedicate the time or have the internal talent team. Contingency recruitment is low risk, but we'd always say that with contingency recruitment, try and work with one recruitment partner, because if you go to market with more than one, it becomes race to the low-hanging fruit. So the recruitment agencies are always thinking about risk of not earning any fee. Whereas if you partner exclusively with someone, even if it's for a fixed amount of time, like 2 weeks, they're more likely to really partner with you and work with you to solve the problem and dive deep to uncover, the best talent available. An executive search, it's really appropriate for very senior roles, for confidential roles, or where a role is it obviously has to be above a certain level, but where it's a really critical hire and you need perhaps a certain specific profile, or you want to leave no stone uncovered to try and engage the best possible person. So it's a very thorough approach. So during the hiring process, you're starting to get some candidate engagement. So it's really important that you're clear about what you're looking for. So one of our mantras is if a candidate's a maybe, then we have to talk to them. Sometimes I'd say don't make assumptions about experience. Sometimes candidates get real conflicting advice around what they should do with their CV, but whether it should be 1 pages, 2 pages, 3 pages. And if somebody's worked in the right domain, it just might be that they haven't volunteered or amplified enough the experience that's important to you, but the candidate may well have done it. So it is a lot of hard work at this stage. It's important to talk to anyone that could be a maybe, and it happens so frequently that we'll talk to a candidate that looks okay, but then when we talk to them, we realize that actually they're amazing, and we'll get them to weave a few bullet points into their resume to highlight the experience that they genuinely have, but just haven't really perhaps mentioned it enough, just to make it clear that they are a match for the role. So there's really some legwork that's involved there, and also not being aware of personal bias as well. It's kind of a difficult thing to do. I think trying to think of it as a start point that you might be biased is the best starting point, but trying to actively consider a broad range of backgrounds and not just thinking about the people that you have in the team at the moment is a really good thing to do as well. So in terms of the actual interview process, so having a hiring plan is really important, and some of our clients do this really well. So some of our clients have hiring plans where before they go to market, it's a requirement, but they won't get sign off for the role unless they've validated what they're looking for with 3 people outside of their organization. So they've talked to 3 experts to kind of just sanity check the profile that they need, and also the perhaps the salary and the price point as well, and also thinking about who needs to be involved. I think often organizations involve too many people in hiring, and I think boiling it down to who actually needs to be involved in the decision, and actually who would be nice, who would it nice to have involved from a kind of a stakeholder engagement perspective. So it's absolutely fine to involve more people later on, or even as as you're kind of getting to offer stage, but having an accelerated process that's slick and dynamic, where candidates feel that you're moving at pace, you're engaged, they can see things happening in a timely way, because they're meeting the key people that they need to meet is important, I would say. And also defining who does what. So again, clients of ours that have a great hiring plan, everyone will go into an interview knowing what they're focusing on. So it could be stakeholder engagement, it might be use of data, it could be influencing, it might be prioritization. So you've got somebody who is perhaps a domain expert in that area who's going into an interview specifically looking at that one thing. Also, are the timescales realistic? So, I've mentioned about how recruitment has to be a priority, otherwise it's not effective. And a big part of that is are the key people that are involved, are they actually around? Are they traveling? Are they on holiday? So just making sure that everything's aligned and you have a realistic roadmap is really important. We're often asked about tasks as well. So tasks are great towards the end of a process. we normally recommend that they're either kind of backward looking or forward looking. So by backward looking, talking about the candidate's experience. So tell us about a time when you've done X or when you've done Y, and talk us through what you did. Or forward looking is, what would you do in our environment? So, how would you solve this problem, or how would you how would you approach the role in the first sort of 30 days, 3 months, 9 months, or whatever. One thing that's important though is that a task isn't onerous. So we normally recommend that it's really well defined and it's time bound. So if a candidate looks at a task and thinks, okay, to do a good job on this, it's 2 or 3 days work. They're probably going to think it's free consultancy, which will, may turn them away. But B, they may look at it and think, I just haven't got time to do this. And that means I'm not going to be competitive, so I'll just withdraw. So you won't get what you want out of it. So we normally recommend that a task is 2 to 3 hours to prepare, 10 to 15 minutes to present, and really tightly defined, and tell candidates that that's what you expect and no more. And then you should get you should get the best out of them. And video versus in person. So so much has changed since the since the pandemic, the start of the pandemic. So there were hardly any video interviews beforehand. We'd sometimes have telephone interviews, which would be a high level screen at first stage, and then everyone had to engineer time to meet in person. I would say it would be much more effective for you if the early stages of your process are in video, just so that it's easier to schedule, can happen more quickly. Now, probably 20-30% of our clients, in our experience, don't meet people that they end up hiring. So they might be fully remote organizations and they're totally happy engaging and onboarding people remotely. But the bulk of organizations now do want to meet people, which is completely understand. But I would make that meeting towards the end of a process once you you have serious contenders in play. So product management interview questions. This is again something that we're asked about all the time. There are many of them, and we've got some examples here. I think the key thing to do is think, what competency are we assessing against, and then build out questions based on that. And for consistency, try and ask candidates the same question just to see how they respond. Some candidates are, you get the odd person who's caught on the back foot. So I think giving people guidance, don't just ask the question, and if they give a poor answer, move on. I'd try and give them guidance and massage them towards a sort of answer, help them find a good answer from their experience, so that it's you get the most out of it and you're able to assess them the most, as best as you can. We actually wrote a really good blog on this, and it's on our website. So we have quite a large list of product management interview questions. So here are some examples, but the key message is think about competencies, build out your questions, ask the same questions of different candidates for consistency. But for more examples, then go and have a look at our website. So the final stage. You come towards the end of a process. Hopefully, you've got more than one candidate in play, which is good for competition and contingency. So one thing that again we obsess about is candidate sentiment, not just at final stage, all the way through the interview process. So every pre-interview prep, every post-interview feedback call, we're trying to understand how the candidate feels, how excited they are about the opportunity, how it compares to other things they might be looking at, how they'd rank them, the pros and cons of everything. And again, one of our mantras is you can't influence what you don't know. So the key here is to really position yourself as a trusted advisor. It's something that we really work on with all of our candidates, because if a candidate has, if they feel pressurized, if they feel that you're going to get angry or cross if they don't give you the answer that they want, they just won't tell you. And they won't open up to you, and then you don't know what's going on. And it may be something that is a concern in their mind that actually there's something you can do about that. You might be able to change the shape of the role, or it might be a misconception. But if you don't know about it, there's nothing that you can do. And it may be that a candidate is not really getting excited about your opportunity for that reason. Having said that, what you ideally want is to reach the end of the process with the candidates that are most qualified, most suitable, and most engaged as well, most likely to accept an offer if you did make them an offer. So one of the things that we do in the early stages of interview processes, if we see candidate sentiment leaning the other way, and we don't feel that there's anything we can do about that, we'll encourage them to withdraw, which can often be a counterintuitive thing to do, because often they're the best candidates that have multiple opportunities in play. But experience tells us that if a candidate has another couple of things that they prefer, it's very unlikely that you're actually going to engage them. They won't end up accepting an offer from you, even if you make one. It's much better to have the most engaged candidates that are most suitable at the end of the process. So understanding candidate sentiment, I can't say how important that is all the way through, particularly at the end. Just managing expectations and making sure that they really know what you're offering, how the benefits package stacks up, what the potential of any bonus or equity is really important, and ideally have a contingency as well. So if a candidate feels that they're the person that you must employ and engage, it's easy for them to talk up their salary. It puts them in a strong negotiating position. So genuinely having a contingency in place in case something goes wrong, but also to keep expectations grounded is a really good thing to do. So in terms of the engagement strategy, and this is kind of post offer. So if you have a verbal acceptance from a candidate, there's a huge amount of risk during that period between acceptance and actually onboarding with you. So I think engagement through that period is really, really important, and really reminding candidates of why they're joining you. So is there any information you can share that isn't confidential to get them thinking about what they're going to be doing when they join you? Increasing their emotional attachment and engagement is really good. So can you invite them in to meet more team members, to come in for a coffee or meet for a drink after work if that's appropriate? We always recommend that. So mentally, you want the candidates to be in a place where they are starting with you on a certain date, and that helps to guard against counter offers, and helps to keep them excited and engaged and plugged into what you're doing. And finally, the onboarding process is really important as well. I think personally that people don't like uncertainty. Humans don't like uncertainty. So communicating to people before they start a new job, which can be a really daunting thing, learning a new environment. They have to build a network and meet new people and all the rest of it within your organization. So just communicating them beforehand to say, this is what your first week's going to be like, this is how your induction's going to work, some basic pre-start information, this is what people tend to wear, this is what people tend to do for food, or arrange to have lunch with them on the first day. All of that is really, really important so that onboarding process is as smooth as possible. And I just wanted to say as well that there are lots of resources on our website for both hiring organisations and candidates as well. And at Intelligent People, we've worked in this area for a long time, and we're always happy to give advice and tailored advice around size of candidate pool, package, benchmarking, helping with recruitment process as well. And I tend to share a lot of that sort of content on LinkedIn as well. So, do reach out and connect on LinkedIn. I tend to connect to everyone. So do send me a connection request if you'd like to see some of that information in your feed as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. That's great. So I am going to ask you if you'd have any questions, type them in the question panel. I can see some have come in already, and so I'm going to pick the first one from Marcus. So Chris, Marcus has asked, from your experience, generally speaking, which ability or perk is the most critical for a product manager to be successful that you should look out for during hiring?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it makes me think that the question is asking for what benefit or whether it's bonus, equity or anything would be best. But I'd say the answer to that question is really the opportunity. So I think the main thing that people look for is the opportunity. So what are they going to be doing? What are they going to be building? What are they going to be learning? So I think that's the thing that really excites people. So when we first start talking to candidates, we don't go in and say we have a product role and it's paying this much. We go in and say we have a product role and this is what it's doing, this is what it's going to be building, this is what's in the roadmap. So I would say focus on what they're going to be delivering and the impact you need from that person, and then try and articulate that to them. Now, if we were to talk about benefits, I think so I would say, off the top of my head, I'd say health cover is really important. People really like that. I think when we engage with a client and maybe they're early stage, they don't have health cover in place, that's, sometimes a bit of a challenge. Bonus, people like bonus. Equity can be a massive sort of incentive as well that people get excited by. Does that answer the question? How do you think, Ian?
I think that's good. So thank you, Chris. There's a question here from Thomas. Is there anything in any of the 3 stages, so before hiring, during hiring, and the final stage, that you would say differs when hiring product owners rather than product managers? Now, before you jump in, Chris, I'll just say that on our training courses, this often comes up as an issue, particularly for recruiting people who are leading teams of product people, and there's confusion about exactly, well, should I advertise for a product owner or a product manager? There's lots of crossover between those roles, and it's very important to be clear, certainly from my experience, exactly what you're wanting someone to do. Many product managers are also product owners. Many product owners expand into product management activities. So what I would certainly say that is being clear exactly what the role is about is one thing to think about. But Chris, over to you.
Yeah, I'd agree. And the way that we generally view a product owner role is that it's more execution focused. And if you think about the product management lifecycle, product managers are making commercial decisions, they're shaping business cases, they're doing customer and market research to try and decide what to do, and then they build and execute. Product owners, you'll probably tell me you disagree, but product owners, in our view, seem to be more execution focused, so prioritizing a roadmap and coaching and delivering. I think there's a kind of a theoretical definition of a product owner, which is somebody who's very senior and actually owns everything. But that's the way we typically look at it.
I think I generally agree with you. There is confusion over job titles, but product owner, as defined by the Scrum Agile methodology, tends to be more on the execution side. But there's all sorts of stuff out there.
But just to answer the question, I mean, I wouldn't change anything in stage 1, 2, or 3. Right. I think they're going to a product owner or a product manager or a product leader and trying to articulate what's in the roadmap as a way of engaging and having a joined up plan, and everything else we talked about is really important. So I would apply that to every level across product owner, product manager.
Okay. Question here from Peter. So I think you, Chris, you noted that about 30% of companies are making candidate selections without meeting in person. So following on from this, what percentage of candidates expect to have the option for remote or hybrid working? And is that likely to change much over the coming months and years, do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. So got a small amount of semi-anecdotal data here, looking at some of our everything we've done over the last sort of 18 months. So less than 2% of the roles that we have partnered with clients to help fill have been 100% office based, less than 2%. So we can say that type of opportunity is virtually dead, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult to find people that want to do that. I would say just over 20% are fully remote. So there are many small medium organizations that have closed down their offices, and they've adapted the way that they work, and they've realized that they don't have to have offices, and they will try and meet up periodically. Now the bulk of it in the middle, so let's say it's 75-80% are hybrid working. Now that can mean anything from 1 to 3 days a week. So when clients describe roles as hybrid to us, it's never more than 3. Sometimes it's as low as 1. Sometimes it's as low as 1 day every fortnight. So I think that we've things have changed so much in the last 2 years, 2.5 years or so, and I'm sure that we're not at the end of this journey. So I'm sure that you'll start to see more roles opening up that give the option of fully remote. And it's important to remember that not everyone likes fully remote. Many people do, but not everyone does. So organizations, I think, that do it really well really give flexibility. And I think in product management, meeting up periodically, whether it's once a month, once every 2 months or a quarter, that's probably really important from a relationship building perspective. But companies are really finding ways of working and doing great work and being productive with fully remote teams now.
Thank you, Chris. There's a question here from Mark. I'm not sure if it's aimed at Product Focus or Chris, but how can one get access to your online resources? Is it a kind of subscription package, or do you have to pay for every resource you get? I'll answer from Product Focus's side first, and to say that it's free to sign up at our website to get most of our resources. All we need is your email address. And there is extra stuff you can pay for as a subscription, but the bulk of it is freely available, and I would encourage you to do that. Why not? It's free, and it's very easy to be able to do that at our sign up on our website. And Chris, I think you've mentioned your stuff, blogs on your website and your LinkedIn stuff.
Yeah, so all the content we share is free. We do a lot of polls, we do some research with our clients, and we try and share those insights. So we tend to share them on LinkedIn, so you can either follow the Intelligent People LinkedIn page or follow me. If you go to our website, it tends to be in our blog section. So I've just had a quick look myself to remind myself. So it's there's the About Us tab and then the blog. So that's where you tend to find the articles and news and information that we tend to produce.
Great. And I think it's time for one final question from Lucy. Chris, how do you see the job market for technology product managers looking over the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So first of all, looking back, the last 18 months has been the busiest time I can ever remember. So everyone seemed to be hiring. Now, there is change. There's talk of us going into a recession now. At the enterprise level, a lot of the tech companies, there's been some high-profile hiring freezes or redundancies. I think in the scheme of things, that's quite small scale at the moment. There are a lot of scale-ups that have raised incredible amounts of funding that still have a lot of runway and are still building and hiring. So it's still a very buoyant market, I would say. And we don't see that changing, certainly for 6 months and hopefully for longer. It's difficult to see much beyond then, because it just depends how if we have a recession, how deep it is. But certainly, in the sort of the short term, it's a really buoyant market, and it's really difficult and competitive to try and hire and engage the right people. Great for job seekers, though, I would say.
Thank you very much. So I think we'll finish there. Thank you for listening to our webinar. Don't forget, we have lots of free best practice resources that you can sign up for at our website. We run our public courses across the world and anyone can attend. We also review product management and companies and run private training courses just for them. Good luck with your product management.